The morning sun barely broke through the gray clouds as 15-year-old Damon stepped through the heavy doors of Riverside High School for the first time. His backpack felt heavier than usual, not from books but from the weight of starting over. Again. This was his third school in 4 years thanks to his father's military career. But Damon had learned to adapt. At least that's what he told himself. The hallways buzzed with the usual chaos of a Monday morning. Students clustered in groups laughing and catching up on weekend gossip. Damon navigated through the crowd, following the signs toward the main office. A few curious glances came his way, but nothing unusual, just the typical interest in a new face. After collecting his schedule and locker assignment, Damon made his way to room 204 for first period English. He chose a seat near the back corner, a habit he'd developed over the years. Stay quiet, blend in, make it through the day. His father always said the best operators knew when to observe and when to act. That's when he first noticed them. 3 boys sat in the middle row, their body language screaming confidence and territory. The tallest one, with sandy blonde hair styled with too much gel, leaned back in his chair like he owned the place. His 2 friends flanked him on either side, one stocky with red hair, the other lean with dark hair and a permanent smirk. The blonde kid caught Damon's eye and didn't look away. Instead, he leaned over to his friends and whispered something. All 3 turned to look at Damon. Then they laughed. Damon felt the familiar tightening in his chest but kept his face neutral. He'd been through this before at other schools. Sometimes it meant nothing. Sometimes it meant everything. He pulled out his notebook and pretended to review the class syllabus he'd picked up from the office. The teacher, Mrs. Patterson, walked in and started taking attendance. When she called out Damon Williams, the blonde kid snorted loud enough for half the class to hear. "Problem, Brett?" Mrs. Patterson asked without looking up from her roster. "No, ma'am," Brett replied, his voice dripping with fake politeness. "Just clearing my throat." The class continued without incident, but Damon could feel eyes on him throughout the period. When the bell rang, he gathered his things and headed for the door, trying to slip out in the middle of the crowd. "Yo, new kid." Damon turned. Brett stood with his 2 friends blocking part of the hallway. "Yeah?" Damon responded, keeping his voice even. "Where you from?" Brett asked, stepping closer. His friends followed, forming a casual semicircle. "Military family. We move around," Damon said simply. "Military, huh?" The redhead, whose name Damon would later learn was Kyle, exchanged a look with Brett. "Let me guess. Your dad's in the army?" "Something like that." "What's something like that mean?" The dark-haired one, Tyler, chimed in. "Either he is or he isn't," Damon shrugged. "He's in the army. Now if you'll excuse me, I've got to get to second period." He moved to walk past them, but Brett sidestepped into his path. "Relax, man. We're just being friendly, trying to welcome you to Riverside." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "We don't get many new students here, especially not from military families." The way he paused before new students made Damon's jaw tighten, but he forced himself to stay calm. His father's voice echoed in his head. "Son, some people will try to provoke you. They want a reaction. Don't give them the satisfaction." "Thanks for the welcome," Damon said flatly and walked around them. He heard Kyle say something behind him, followed by laughter, but he didn't turn around. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of new classes, new faces, and new teachers explaining expectations. By lunchtime, Damon was exhausted from being on all morning. The cafeteria was a maze of social hierarchies made visible. Athletes at one set of tables, band kids at another, various friend groups scattered throughout. Damon grabbed a tray and found an empty spot at the end of a table near the windows. He was halfway through his sandwich when someone bumped his shoulder hard enough to make him drop it on his tray. "Oh, my bad, bro." Brett appeared next to him, holding his own lunch tray. Kyle and Tyler stood behind him, grinning. "These tables are pretty crowded. Easy to lose your balance." "It's fine," Damon muttered, picking up his sandwich. "You know, Damon," Brett continued, sitting down across from him uninvited. "I was thinking about what you said, about your dad being in the army. That's pretty cool, I guess. My dad's a lawyer. Makes good money. Real good money." He bit into an apple. "What does your dad do exactly? Like, what's his rank?" Damon knew where this was heading. He'd seen this movie before. "He's a colonel," Kyle whistled. "A colonel? That's pretty high up, right? So your family must be doing okay then." But I heard military people don't make that much. Is that true? We do fine, Damon said, his patience wearing thin. Just seems weird, Tyler added, leaning against the table. Like my dad always says, if you're really smart and capable, you don't join the military. You go to college, get a real career. No offense. Damon set down his sandwich and looked directly at Tyler. My father has a master's degree and speaks 4 languages. He served this country for 20 years. That's a real career. Brett held up his hands in mock surrender. Whoa, touchy subject. We're not trying to insult your pops, man. Just making conversation. Then maybe find something else to talk about, Damon said quietly. The tension at the table caught the attention of nearby students. Brett noticed the audience and seemed to feed off it. He leaned forward, lowering his voice just enough that only their table could hear clearly. You know what? I think you've got a chip on your shoulder, Williams. You come into our school, all quiet and mysterious, and now you're getting defensive over simple questions. He paused, his eyes calculating. Maybe you just don't fit in here. Damon stood up, grabbing his tray. Maybe I don't want to. He walked away, feeling dozens of eyes following him. Behind him, he heard Brett's voice carry across the cafeteria. Sensitive much? Laughter followed. The rest of the day crawled by. In history class, Damon found his textbook moved to a different desk. In math, someone had scribbled on his notebook while he was at the board solving a problem. Small things. Petty things. But designed to annoy and unsettle. By the time the final bell rang, Damon just wanted to go home. He went to his locker to grab his jacket and stopped cold. Someone had taped a piece of paper to the front. On it, written in thick black marker, was a crude drawing and a racial slur that made his blood boil. Students walked past, some glancing at the locker, some taking out their phones to record. Nobody said anything. Nobody stopped to help him take it down. Damon carefully removed the paper, crumpled it, and shoved it deep into his backpack. His hand shook slightly, but his face remained blank. He grabbed his jacket, closed the locker, and walked out of the school without looking back. On the bus ride home, he stared out the window and thought about his little sister, Keisha. She'd start at Riverside Middle School next week. The thought of her facing anything like this made his stomach turn. When he got home, Keisha was in the living room doing homework. "How was your first day?" she asked brightly. Damon forced a smile. "It was fine. Just getting used to a new place. Did you make any friends?" "Not yet, but it's only day 1. She nodded and went back to her math problems. Damon headed upstairs to his room, closed the door, and sat on his bed. He pulled out the crumpled paper from his backpack and stared at it. Tomorrow would be day 2, and he had a feeling things were just getting started. The next 2 weeks felt like walking through a minefield. Every day, Damon showed up to school hoping things would get better. Every day, they got worse. Brett and his friends had made it their personal mission to make Damon's life miserable. It started small. A shove in the hallway that could be passed off as accidental. Books knocked off his desk. Whispered comments just loud enough for him to hear, but quiet enough that teachers couldn't catch them. Then it escalated. On Wednesday of his second week, Damon found his gym clothes soaked in some kind of sticky soda. They reeked of artificial cherry flavor. Coach Henderson barely glanced at the situation before telling Damon to either wear what he had or sit out. Damon sat out, earning a 0 for participation that day. Thursday brought a new low. Someone had gotten into his locker and filled it with garbage from the cafeteria. Half-eaten food, empty milk cartons, wadded-up napkins. The smell hit him like a wall when he opened it between classes. Students gathered around, some laughing, others filming on their phones. Damon cleaned it out without saying a word. His jaw clenched so tight his teeth hurt. "Dude, that's nasty," Kyle said, appearing beside him with Brett and Tyler. "You should really keep your locker cleaner. I wonder how that stuff got in there," Tyler added with fake concern. "Your lock must be broken or something." Damon slammed the locker door shut and walked away. Behind him, he heard Brett's voice. "Yo, Williams. Where you going? We were just trying to help." Their laughter followed him down the hall. At home, Damon tried to act normal. His father, Colonel Raymond Williams, had been busy with some kind of training operation at the base. He'd leave early in the morning and come home late at night, usually after Damon and Keisha were already in bed. His mother, Lisa, worked as a nurse, and her shifts were just as unpredictable. Keisha, though, she noticed everything. "Why do you have a bruise on your arm?" she asked one evening while they were doing homework at the kitchen table. Damon glanced at the purple mark near his elbow. Brett had accidentally slammed into him at his locker that afternoon, pinning his arm against the metal frame. Gym class. Got hit during basketball. You don't play basketball, Keisha said, her eyes narrowing. She was only 13 but sharp as a tack. Well, we had to play today. It's fine, Keisha. Drop it. She didn't look convinced but went back to her algebra homework. Damon could feel her glancing at him every few minutes. The truth was, Damon didn't want his parents to know. His father had taught him to be strong, to handle challenges on his own. The colonel had faced real danger, real enemies in places Damon couldn't even imagine. How could he complain about some stupid kids at school? It felt weak. It felt like failure. Besides, they'd be moving again eventually. They always did. He just had to survive until then. Friday of the second week, things got physical. Damon was walking to his last class when someone stuck out a foot and tripped him. He went down hard, his books scattering across the hallway floor. Pain shot through his knee where it hit the tile. "Oh man, you really need to watch where you're going," Brett said, standing over him. "These hallways can be dangerous." Damon gathered his books, ignoring the throbbing in his knee. A few students stopped to watch, but most just walked around him like he was an obstacle in their path. One girl, a quiet student named Riley from his English class, bent down to help pick up his papers. "Thanks," Damon muttered. "Those guys are jerks?" she whispered. "You should report them." Damon just nodded and headed to class, limping slightly. That weekend, Damon's father was finally home. Saturday morning, Raymond Williams sat at the kitchen table reading the newspaper and drinking coffee. He looked tired but relaxed, a rare sight these days. "How's the new school treating you?" his father asked without looking up from the sports section. "It's fine," Damon answered automatically. "Making friends? Some." His father lowered the paper and looked at him. Raymond Williams had a way of seeing right through people. It came from years of reading situations, assessing threats, knowing when something was off. "You sure about that?" "Yeah, Dad, I'm sure." Before his father could press further, Keisha walked into the kitchen. She poured herself a bowl of cereal and sat down, her eyes moving between Damon and their father. "Damon has a bruise on his arm," she announced, "and he's been coming home late every day." "Keisha." Damon shot her a look that could melt steel. "What?" she said defensively. "It's true." Their father set down his newspaper. "Is that right?" "It's nothing, Dad, just the usual new school stuff. You know how it is." Raymond studied his son for a long moment. "If something's going on, you need to tell me." "There's nothing going on." "I can handle it," his father nodded slowly. "Handling things is good. But there's a difference between handling a situation and suffering in silence. You understand that?" "Yes, sir." "Good. Because if someone's giving you trouble, there are ways to deal with it. The right ways." Damon nodded and excused himself from the table. He could feel Keisha's worried eyes on his back as he left. Monday morning brought a new nightmare. When Damon arrived at school, a crowd had gathered near the main entrance. Students were looking at their phones, laughing and whispering. As Damon got closer, someone turned a phone screen toward him. It was a photo. A badly photoshopped image of Damon with offensive text written across it. The kind of thing that made his stomach drop and his face burn with humiliation. Someone had created a fake social media account in his name and posted it for everyone to see. "Yo, Williams, nice pic, bro," Tyler called out from the crowd. Laughter erupted around him. Damon pushed through the crowd and went straight to the main office. The secretary, Mrs. Chen, looked up from her computer. "I need to report something," Damon said, trying to keep his voice steady. "What is it, dear?" He explained about the fake account in the photo. Mrs. Chen looked concerned and called in Vice Principal Morrison. Damon explained everything again, showing him the screenshot Riley had sent him as proof. Mr. Morrison frowned at the image. "This is definitely inappropriate. Do you know who created this account?" "I have a pretty good idea," Damon said carefully. "Do you have proof?" "No, sir." "Not exactly," Morrison sighed. "Without proof, Damon, there's not much I can do. I can send out a reminder about cyberbullying and appropriate online behavior, but I can't accuse specific students without evidence." "So nothing happens?" "I'll look into it. That's all I can promise right now." Damon left the office feeling more defeated than when he'd entered. The system he'd been told to trust had just shown him it wasn't built to protect him. The harassment continued through the week. Notes left in his locker. Comments muttered as he walked past. his lunch tray accidentally knocked over. Through it all, Damon kept his face neutral and his mouth shut. He documented everything in a notebook at home, writing down dates, times, and what happened. He wasn't sure why. Maybe because it made him feel like he had some kind of control. Thursday afternoon, Damon stayed late at the library to work on a history project. When he finally left, the school was mostly empty. He was walking through the back hallway toward the exit when he heard footsteps behind him. "Hey, Williams, wait up!" Damon turned to see Brett, Kyle, and Tyler approaching. His heart rate picked up, but he stood his ground. "What do you want?" he asked. Brett smiled, but there was nothing friendly about it. "We just want to talk, man. See, we've noticed you've been having a rough time here, and we feel kind of bad about that." "Sure you do." "No, seriously," Kyle added. "We think maybe you'd be happier at a different school. You know, somewhere you'd fit in better." Tyler stepped closer. "Somewhere with more people like you." The meaning was crystal clear. Damon felt his hands curl into fists. Every muscle in his body tensed. His father's training kicked in, running through defensive options, calculating angles. He could handle himself in a fight. His father had made sure of that. But his father had also taught him something else. Pick your battles. No one forces the answer and when it isn't. "Get out of my way," Damon said quietly. "Or what?" Brett challenged, stepping even closer. For a long moment, nobody moved. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. Then footsteps echoed from around the corner. Mrs. Rodriguez, the history teacher, appeared with a stack of papers. "Everything okay here, boys?" she asked, her eyes moving between them. "Yes, ma'am," Brett said smoothly, his expression shifting instantly to innocent. "We were just heading out." The three of them walked past Damon, Tyler bumping his shoulder as he went. Mrs. Rodriguez watched them leave, then turned to Damon. "Are those boys bothering you?" Damon wanted to say yes, wanted to tell her everything. But he'd already tried that once this week. "No, ma'am. We're good." She didn't look like she believed him, but she nodded. "Have a safe walk home, Damon." On the bus ride home, Damon stared out the window and made a decision. He was done staying quiet. That evening, Damon sat at the dinner table pushing food around his plate. His mother had made his favorite meal, pot roast with mashed potatoes, but he barely tasted it. His mind kept replaying the confrontation in the hallway, the look in Brett's eyes, the way Tyler had deliberately bumped him. "You're quiet tonight," his mother said, studying him across the table. "Just tired," Damon replied. His father looked up from his plate. Raymond had been home for dinner 3 nights in a row now, which was unusual. The training operation at the base must have wrapped up. "How was school?" "Same as always." Keisha set down her fork with a loud clank. "Why won't you just tell them?" "Tell us what?" Lisa asked, her nurse instincts immediately picking up on the tension. Damon glared at his sister. "There's nothing to tell." "Yes, there is. You come home with bruises. Your jacket had a rip in it yesterday, and I heard some kids at the middle school talking about a video going around of you getting tripped in the hallway." Keisha's voice cracked. "They're bullying you and you won't do anything about it." The silence that followed was deafening. Raymond set down his knife and fork very carefully. When he spoke, his voice was calm but carried an edge that Damon recognized. It was the voice his father used when he was working very hard to control his anger. "Is this true?" Damon felt cornered. "It's not a big deal, Dad. That's not what I asked. I asked if it's true. Some kids have been giving me a hard time. That's all. It happens. What kind of hard time?" his mother asked, her face pale. Damon wanted to downplay it, but Keisha was staring at him with tears in her eyes, and his father was looking at him with that penetrating gaze that seemed to see straight through to the truth. So he told them, not everything, but enough. The comments, the shoves, the locker incidents, the fake social media account. He left out the worst of what they'd said, the specific slurs and threats, but even the edited version made his mother's hand fly to her mouth. "How long has this been going on?" Raymond asked. "Since the first day." "And you didn't think to tell us?" "I thought I could handle it myself." "I didn't want to—" Damon trailed off. "Didn't want to what?" his father pressed. "I didn't want to seem weak. You always taught me to be strong, to face challenges head on. You deal with real problems, life and death stuff. I didn't want to bother you with high school drama." Raymond was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked around the table to Damon. He put a hand on his son's shoulder. "Son, look at me." Damon looked up. Strength isn't suffering in silence. Strength is knowing when to ask for help. And this? He gestured toward Damon. This isn't drama. This is serious. Do you understand that? Damon nodded, feeling something loosen in his chest. Tomorrow we're going to the school, Lisa said firmly. All of us. Mom, that's going to make it worse. It can't get much worse. Damon, Keisha said quietly. She was right, and he knew it. The next morning, Damon's parents called in to work and the three of them drove to Riverside High together. Keisha had wanted to come too, but they'd convinced her to go to school. In the parking lot, Damon felt his anxiety spike. What if this doesn't change anything? He asked. His father turned to look at him from the driver's seat. Then we try something else. But we don't give up and we don't back down, got it? Yes, sir. They walked into the main office together. Mrs. Chen looked surprised to see Damon with his parents during school hours. We need to speak with Principal Hartwick, Raymond said. His voice was polite but firm. It's urgent. Do you have an appointment? No, but we'll wait as long as necessary. Something in Raymond's tone made Mrs. Chen pick up the phone immediately. 5 minutes later, they were ushered into the principal's office. Principal Hartwick was a thin man in his 50s with graying hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He smiled warmly and shook their hands. Mr. and Mrs. Williams, how can I help you today? Raymond didn't sit down. Neither did Lisa. Principal Hartwick, our son has been the target of ongoing harassment since his first day at this school. We're here to discuss what you're going to do about it. The principal's smile faded slightly. Harassment is a strong word, Mr. Williams. Boys can be rough with each other sometimes, but this isn't boys being rough, Lisa interrupted. This is targeted bullying with racial overtones. And it's been going on for weeks. Hartwick shifted in his seat. Damon, have you reported these incidents? Yes, sir. I spoke with Vice Principal Morrison earlier this week. I see. And what did Mr. Morrison say? That without proof there wasn't much he could do. The principal nodded slowly. Unfortunately, that's accurate. We can't take disciplinary action without evidence or witnesses. Otherwise, it becomes a matter of he said, she said. Raymond's jaw tightened. So you're telling me that my son has to continue enduring this harassment because the students doing it are smart enough not to get caught by a teacher? I understand your frustration, Mr. Williams, but we have policies and procedures we must follow. Your policies are failing my son. Dad, Damon said quietly. He pulled out his phone and opened his notes app. I kept records. Dates, times, what happened, who was around. He handed the phone to the principal. And there are videos. Other students recorded some of it and posted it online. Hartwick scrolled through the notes, his expression hardening. These are serious allegations. Do you have the names of the students involved? Brett Cunningham, Kyle Morrison, and Tyler Barrett. They're juniors. The principal looked up sharply. Morrison? As in related to our Vice Principal Morrison? Kyle's his nephew, Damon confirmed. An uncomfortable silence filled the office. Raymond leaned forward, placing his hands on the principal's desk. Now we're getting somewhere. Is that why nothing has been done? Because one of the bullies is related to your vice principal? Mr. Williams, I assure you that family connections have nothing to do with how we handle discipline. Then prove it, Lisa said. These boys have been tormenting our son for weeks. They've vandalized his property, physically assaulted him, and created fake social media accounts to humiliate him. What are you going to do about it? Principal Hartwick straightened his shoulders. I'll need to investigate these claims. That means interviewing witnesses, reviewing any available video evidence, and speaking with the students involved. The process could take several days. Several days, Raymond repeated flatly. Meanwhile, my son is supposed to continue attending school with these kids? We could arrange for Damon to have a modified schedule to minimize contact. Or you could suspend the students who are doing the harassing, Lisa suggested sharply. Without completing the investigation, I can't do that. It wouldn't be fair to those students or their families. Raymond straightened up and something in his posture changed. It was subtle, but suddenly he seemed taller, more imposing. Principal Hartwick, I'm going to be very clear with you. If this situation isn't resolved quickly and appropriately, I will be contacting the superintendent, the school board, and if necessary, an attorney. My son has a right to a safe learning environment, and your school has failed to provide that. Do we understand each other? The principal swallowed. Yes, Mr. Williams, I understand. Good. How soon can you begin this investigation? I'll start today. I'll pull the students in question and interview them separately, If you can send me links to any online content Damon mentioned, that would be helpful. Damon sent the principal screenshots and links from his phone. Hartwick reviewed them, his face growing more troubled with each image. This is unacceptable, he finally said. I had no idea it had gotten this bad. That's the problem, Lisa said. You should have known. Someone should have known. After they left the office, Damon's parents took him home for the rest of the day. They didn't want him going back to class until the principal had at least talked to Brett and his friends. At home, Damon sat on the couch feeling drained. His father sat down next to him. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, Damon said. I'm sorry I didn't see it, his father replied. I've been so focused on work that I missed what was happening right in front of me. That's on me, not you. Do you think anything will actually change? Raymond was quiet for a moment. I think we've put the principal in a position where he has to take action. But we'll see. If he doesn't follow through, we'll take it higher. And higher. Whatever it takes. What if it makes things worse? What if Brett and his friends come after me harder because I told? Then they'll face serious consequences. And son? Raymond looked him in the eye. You're not in this alone anymore. Remember that. Damon nodded, feeling the weight on his shoulders lift just slightly. That afternoon, Principal Hartwick called. He'd interviewed all 3 boys and several witnesses. Based on what he'd learned and the evidence Damon had provided, all 3 students were being suspended pending a hearing with their parents and the school board. It was a start. But Damon had a feeling this was far from over. The real storm was about to break. The call came 3 days later, just as Damon was starting to think maybe things would finally get better. Principal Hartwick's voice on the phone sounded strained, tired even. Mr. and Mrs. Williams, I need you to come in for a meeting tomorrow morning. 9 o'clock. What's this about? Raymond asked, his phone on speaker so Lisa could hear. The parents of the 3 boys have hired an attorney. They're claiming their sons are being unfairly targeted and that Damon has been the aggressor in several incidents. We need to discuss this situation before the school board hearing. After hanging up, Raymond sat at the kitchen table with his head in his hands. Lisa paced back and forth, furious. They're trying to flip this around on Damon, she said. Make him look like the problem. Of course they are, Raymond replied quietly. Their kids got caught, so now they're going on the offensive. Damon stood in the doorway, his stomach churning. This is exactly what I was afraid of. It's going to get worse now. His father looked up at him. No, it's not. Because we have something they don't. What's that? The truth. And evidence to back it up. The next morning, Damon stayed home again while his parents went to the school. The meeting lasted 3 hours. When they finally came home, both looked exhausted but determined. What happened? Damon asked immediately. His mother sank into a chair. Brett's father is Richard Cunningham. He's apparently some high-powered attorney in the city. He came in with a lawyer and a whole presentation trying to paint his son as the victim. They claim you've been aggressive toward Brett since day one, his father added. That you started the conflicts and their boys were just defending themselves. That's a lie. We know that. And we told them so. But they have 2 witnesses. Students who claim they saw you push Brett first in the hallway. Damon felt his world tilting. Who? Tyler and Kyle, Lisa said bitterly. His own friends lying for him. So what happens now? Raymond leaned against the counter. The school board hearing is scheduled for next week. Both sides will present their evidence and testimony. The board will then decide what disciplinary action, if any, to take. What if they believe Brett's dad? What if they think I'm lying? They won't, his father said firmly, because we're going to show them exactly who's telling the truth. Over the next few days, Raymond worked on something he wouldn't tell Damon about. He spent hours in his home office making calls and typing on his laptop. Lisa helped gather medical records from when she'd documented Damon's bruises and the torn jacket. They contacted Riley, the girl from English class who'd helped Damon pick up his books, and she agreed to testify about what she'd witnessed. The day before the hearing, Damon's father called him into the office. I want to show you something, Raymond said, turning his laptop screen toward Damon. It was a document. A detailed, professionally formatted report with timestamps, screenshots, witness statements, and analysis. Every incident Damon had documented was there, but now, with additional context his father had gathered. Phone records showing when the fake social media account was created and from whose IP address. Security camera footage from the school that his father had requested through official channels, showing Brett and his friends cornering Damon multiple times. Even statements from other students who'd been too afraid to speak up before but agreed to provide written accounts when Raymond contacted them personally. "How did you get all this?" Damon asked in amazement. 20 years in the military teaches you a lot about gathering intelligence and building a case," his father said. "I also made some calls to people who know people. Let's just say I have resources." "Dad, this is incredible." Raymond closed the laptop. "Brett's father thinks he can intimidate us because he's a lawyer with connections. What he doesn't know is that I've spent 2 decades working with some of the most dedicated and capable people in the world. And when you mess with my family, I bring every bit of that experience to bear." The morning of the hearing, Damon put on his best clothes and rode with his parents to the school district administration building. The hearing room was formal, with a long table where 7 school board members sat. Principal Hartwick was there, looking uncomfortable. Vice Principal Morrison sat in the back, his face carefully neutral. On the other side of the room sat Brett, his parents, Kyle, Tyler, and their families, along with Richard Cunningham's lawyer, a sharp-dressed woman with an expensive briefcase. When Raymond walked in, he was wearing his full military dress uniform. The dark blue jacket was covered with medals and ribbons, each one representing years of service, commendations, and achievements. The Combat Infantry Badge, multiple deployment ribbons, the Legion of Merit, and others Damon didn't even recognize. The Silver Eagle insignia of a colonel gleamed on his shoulders. The effect was immediate. Every person in the room straightened up. Even Brett's father, who'd been conferring with his lawyer, stopped mid-sentence to stare. The school board chairwoman, Mrs. Patterson, called the meeting to order. "We're here to review the disciplinary actions taken against 3 students and the counter-complaint filed by their families. Mr. Cunningham, you requested this hearing. Would you like to begin?" Richard Cunningham stood. He was tall, well-dressed, and spoke with the confidence of someone used to winning. For 20 minutes he presented his case. His son was a good student, never been in trouble before, and was being unfairly targeted by a new student who had anger issues. He had witnesses, he claimed, who would testify that Damon had been aggressive and confrontational. Tyler and Kyle both gave statements, obviously rehearsed, claiming Damon had threatened them and started fights. They sounded convincing, and Damon felt his hope sinking. Then it was Raymond's turn. He stood slowly, and when he spoke, his voice was calm but carried authority that filled the room. "My name is Colonel Raymond Williams, United States Army Delta Force. I've served this country for 20 years in some of the most dangerous places on Earth. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not here to play legal games. I'm here as a father whose son has been systematically harassed, threatened, and assaulted for weeks while the adults in charge did nothing." He pulled out a tablet and connected it to the room's projector. "I've prepared a presentation that I believe will clarify exactly what's been happening at Riverside High." For the next 30 minutes, Raymond methodically presented his evidence. The timeline of incidents with corresponding proof. Screenshots of the fake social media account and the forensic data showing it was created from Kyle's home IP address. Security footage that contradicted Tyler and Kyle's testimony, showing them and Brett as the aggressors in every confrontation. Written statements from 6 different students describing the harassment they'd witnessed. Medical documentation of Damon's injuries with photos. Then came the most damning evidence. Raymond had somehow obtained text messages between Brett, Kyle, and Tyler. Messages where they discussed their plans to mess with the new kid and laughed about getting away with it because Kyle's uncle was the vice principal. The room went deadly, silent. "These boys didn't just bully my son," Raymond continued. "They orchestrated a campaign of harassment based on racial prejudice, documented it themselves with their own words, and then lied about it when caught. They attempted to manipulate this process by having family members in positions of authority look the other way." He turned to face Brett's father directly. "Mr. Cunningham, you're a lawyer. You know what this evidence shows. Your son and his friends are guilty of everything they've been accused of. The only question is whether this board has the courage to hold them accountable, despite your position and connections." Richard Cunningham's face had gone from confident to pale. His lawyer whispered urgently in his ear. Mrs. Patterson looked at Vice Principal Morrison. "Did you know about your nephew's involvement in these incidents?" Morrison shifted uncomfortably. "I had heard some things, but I didn't think—" "You didn't think, or you didn't want to know," another board member interrupted. The hearing continued for another hour. Riley testified about what she'd seen. Mrs. Rodriguez, the history teacher, spoke about the confrontation she'd witnessed in the hallway. Even some teachers admitted they'd noticed tension but hadn't reported it. Finally, the board went into private deliberation. The wait felt eternal. Damon sat between his parents, his leg bouncing nervously. His father put a steady hand on his shoulder. After 45 minutes, the board returned. Mrs. Patterson looked serious. After reviewing all the evidence presented today, the board has reached a decision. Brett Cunningham, Kyle Morrison, and Tyler Barrett are expelled from Riverside High School effective immediately. They will be transferred to alternative education programs with mandatory counseling. Brett's mother gasped. His father started to stand, but his lawyer pulled him back down. Furthermore, Mrs. Patterson continued, Vice Principal Morrison, your conduct in this matter has been unacceptable. You're placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation into whether you deliberately ignored complaints about your nephew. Morrison's face went white. Finally, we're implementing immediate changes to our harassment reporting and investigation procedures. No student should ever experience what Damon Williams experienced at our school. As they left the building, Damon felt like he could finally breathe again. In the parking lot, his father put an arm around his shoulders. You did good, son. You stood up for yourself and you did it the right way. We did it together, Damon replied. Raymond smiled. Yeah, we did. But as they drove home, Damon couldn't help wondering what would happen next. The hard part might be over, but returning to school after all this wouldn't be easy. Monday morning felt different. Damon stood in front of his bedroom mirror, adjusting his backpack straps for the third time. It had been a week since the hearing, and today was his first day back at Riverside High. You ready? His father asked from the doorway. Damon took a deep breath. I guess we'll find out. The drive to school was quiet. When they pulled into the parking lot, Raymond turned to his son. Remember, things might be awkward at first. People are going to have opinions. But you did nothing wrong. You stood up for yourself, and that took courage. What if everyone hates me now? What if they think I got those guys in trouble for no reason? Then they don't know the truth. And that's on them, not you. His father squeezed his shoulder. Call me if you need anything. Anything at all. Damon nodded and got out of the car. The walk from the parking lot to the main entrance felt like a mile. Students milled around outside, and he could feel eyes on him. Whispers followed in his wake. That's him. I heard his dad is like some super soldier or something. Did you see those text messages? Brett and those guys are such jerks. The reactions were mixed. Some students gave him supportive nods or small smiles. Others looked away quickly. A few still seemed to blame him, their expressions cold. In the main hallway, Damon noticed immediate changes. New posters lined the walls about bullying prevention and anonymous reporting. A banner announced the formation of a Student Diversity Council. Principal Hartwick had wasted no time implementing reforms. Riley caught up with him near his locker. Hey, welcome back, and thanks. And thank you for testifying. That took guts, she shrugged. It was the right thing to do. I should have said something sooner. A lot of us should have. She paused. There's something you should know. After the hearing, some of us started talking about how we all just stood by and watched. We want to do better. What do you mean? We started a club, Students Against Silence. We meet twice a week to talk about bullying, standing up for each other, that kind of thing. We'd love if you joined. Damon felt something warm spread through his chest. Yeah, I'd like that. First period English was the real test. Damon walked in and the room went quiet. Mrs. Patterson looked up from her desk and smiled warmly. Good morning, Damon. Welcome back. Morning, Mrs. Patterson. He took his usual seat in the back. A few students turned to look at him, including some who'd never spoken to him before. A kid named Chris, who sat 2 rows over, leaned toward him. Hey, man, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I saw some of what those guys did to you, and I should have spoken up. That was wrong of me. Thanks, Damon said, surprised. I appreciate that. Throughout the day, similar moments kept happening. A girl apologized for laughing when his tray got knocked over. A guy from his gym class said he was glad Damon had stood up to Brett. Even some teachers pulled him aside to express support and apologize for not seeing what was happening. But not everyone was supportive. At lunch, Damon noticed a group of students, friends of Brett and his crew, shooting him dirty looks from across the cafeteria. One of them, a senior named Derek, made a point of bumping into Damon's table as he walked past, making his drink wobble. Watch it, Derek muttered, as if Damon had been the one in the way. Riley, who was eating lunch with Damon, rolled her eyes. Ignore him. Derek's been friends with Brett since middle school. He's bitter. Great, so now I have to deal with their friends too? Probably for a little while. But they'll get over it. Or they won't, and they'll end up in the same boat as Brett. She took a bite of her sandwich. The thing is, Damon, you changed something here. The school can't just sweep stuff under the rug anymore. That matters. Over the next few weeks, Damon started to feel more comfortable. He joined the Students Against Silence Club, which grew from 8 members to over 30. They organized assemblies about inclusion and respect. They created peer mediation programs and safe reporting systems. Mrs. Rodriguez, the history teacher who'd witnessed the hallway confrontation, became the new vice principal after Morrison resigned. She made it clear that harassment of any kind wouldn't be tolerated, and she actually followed through. 2 students who tried to start trouble with Damon found themselves in immediate detention, with calls home to their parents. The biggest surprise came 6 weeks after the hearing. Principal Hartwick called an all-school assembly. Damon sat with Riley and other members of the club wondering what this was about. Hartwick took the microphone and looked out at the packed auditorium. Good morning, everyone. I've called you here today because I want to talk about something important. Courage. He paused, letting the word hang in the air. This year, our school failed one of our students. We failed to see harassment happening right in front of us. We failed to listen when that student tried to get help. We failed to create an environment where everyone feels safe. He looked directly at Damon. That student is Damon Williams, and I want to publicly apologize to him and his family. The auditorium was silent. Damon felt his face flush as hundreds of eyes turned toward him. But Damon did something remarkable, Hartwick continued. He didn't give up. He documented what was happening, he spoke up when it got too much, and he stood by the truth even when it was difficult. That's real courage. And because of his courage, this school is changing for the better. The principal gestured to Mrs. Rodriguez. We've implemented new policies, new programs, and new ways of supporting each other. But policies only work if we all commit to them. Every single one of you has the power to stand up against bullying, to support your classmates, to create a better school culture. The question is, will you? When the assembly ended, students filed out quietly. Several stopped to talk to Damon, thanking him or sharing their own stories of being bullied. It was overwhelming, but in a good way. That evening at dinner, Damon told his family about the assembly. Keisha beamed with pride. My brother, the hero. I'm not a hero, Damon protested. Sure you are, his mother said. Heroes are just regular people who stand up when something's wrong. His father nodded. You know what I'm most proud of? Not that you fought back or that you won. I'm proud that you did it the right way. You gathered evidence, you followed procedures, you let the truth speak for itself. That's the mark of real strength. I couldn't have done it without you guys, Damon said. Especially you, Dad. That presentation at the hearing. Where did you even learn to do all that? Raymond smiled. Son, in my line of work, gathering intelligence and presenting a clear case can mean the difference between success and failure. Between life and death sometimes. I'm just glad I could use those skills to help my own kid. Tell me about it, Damon said. Your work, I mean. You never really talk about what you do. His father was quiet for a moment, then started sharing stories. Not classified information, but stories about leadership, about working with diverse teams, about the importance of having each other's backs. Keisha and Damon listened, fascinated. Later that night, Damon lay in bed thinking about everything that had happened. 3 months ago, he'd walked into Riverside High feeling alone and vulnerable. He'd faced hatred and cruelty. But he'd also discovered his own strength, learned the value of speaking up, and found allies in unexpected places. His phone buzzed with a text from Riley. Club meeting tomorrow. We're planning a mentorship program for incoming freshmen. You in? Damon smiled and typed back. Definitely in. He set his phone down and looked at a photo on his nightstand. It was from the hearing, showing him standing next to his father in uniform. Someone had snapped it as they were leaving the building. His father's hand was on his shoulder and they were both smiling. Damon picked up the frame and studied it. For so long, he'd thought he needed to be tough like his father, to handle everything alone, to never show weakness. But his father had taught him something more important. Real strength wasn't about being invincible. It was about standing up for what's right, asking for help when you need it, and never backing down from the truth. The next morning, Damon walked into school with his head high. Derek and some of Brett's other friends still glared at him from time to time, but it didn't bother him anymore. He had friends now, real ones. He had teachers who looked out for him. He had a family who supported him no matter what. More than that, he'd helped create real change. The new reporting system had already helped 2 other students deal with bullying situations before they escalated. The Diversity Council was planning events for the whole school, and the Students Against Silence Club was making a difference, one conversation at a time. During lunch, Chris came over to Damon's table with 3 other students. "Hey, we were talking and we want to join your club. The anti-bullying one. How do we sign up?" Riley grinned and pulled out her phone. "I'll add you to the group chat right now." As the table filled up with new faces and conversation, Damon realized something. He'd come to Riverside High as the new kid, an outsider trying to survive, but he was leaving a mark on this place, changing it for the better. And maybe that was the most important lesson his father had taught him. It wasn't about being the toughest or the strongest. It was about standing up, speaking out, and making the world a little bit better than you found it. One person could make a difference. Damon Williams was proof of that, and his story was just beginning.